Yeah, sure. I guess.
We got the new one,
It's all right. It's.
by the way, I'm gonna say
There's a lot of access. I'm gonna try. Same. All right. I'm going to try to speak up because I know my voice tends to trail off. But I'm just going to get right into it. If you want, you can turn and open your Bibles, but otherwise, I'm going to project the verses that I'm referencing. This talk is playing off of what we've been, this has been our Devo chapter for the week, for those of you following along. And Deuteronomy 8, 17, 18, which is also Caleb's Devo, was on these verses yesterday. You may say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand made me this wealth. But you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who is giving you power to make wealth. So that caused me to reflect on this notion of wealth, not necessarily money, but really whatever it is that you are seeking to gain and accumulate, to consider yourself successful. And then really the heart of my sharing is on this beautiful psalm. Psalm 37, verse 4, has been sort of one of my life verses, you could say. But these verses read, trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in him, and he will do it. Lord, I just thank you for this time. I want to commit this time to you and everybody's here. Whether people can hear my voice or not, I pray that they would be able to hear your voice. And I just pray that you would bless these words. Lord, it wouldn't be about me or me giving a good talk or an entertaining talk or any of those things, Lord, but just about what you would lay on our hearts, what you would say through your words. Yes. Pray this in Jesus' name. Jesus' name. I was recently promoted. I've been working pretty hard. I work pretty hard. If I say so. For 8 years, I've been doing my job for 8 years. This was my position before, and after 8 very hard years of work, I got a new title, and prepare to be impressed. Okay. So let me tell you what this promotion entails. I have no change in my responsibilities. I have no perks. I did not get a new office. I did not even get a raise. And virtually nobody knows what this title means, let alone that I got a promotion. So that was my promotion. And so, of course, because I'm so holy and so above it all, I didn't care at all about the promotion, right? I mean, it made no difference to me, right? No, of course, the reality was after 8 years, I started to care somewhat, quite a bit, about getting promotion because it's been 8 years. And when I got it, I was happy, but I also really found myself not knowing what to think because, as I've explained to you, there's actually zero tangible difference in the fact that I got this promotion. Even if you look at my bio on the website, they don't even put it on the website because they concluded, this is what the hospital concluded, that I'm a doctor. So they conclude that patients would just be confused by this information because it has no. So it's literally nobody. And so I mean, I tried not to make a big deal out of it, but it was like as I got promoted, I have to confess something. There was an utter lack of anything tangible to it, but I just felt compelled to go to the security office and get a new ID that says associate. It's in my bag over there. It's just because I was just like I worked hard for this. I want I need something. Anyway, what's my point? My point is that it just really caused me to think about, my goals and kind of what makes me feel like I'm successful. What makes me feel like I'm where I'm supposed to be in my life. What makes me feel like this is, hey, I'm doing all right. People look at me and they're like, that guy's not a screw up. He's doing okay. And I'm in a very particular segment of the workforce, but I wonder if whatever situation you're in, whether there is something similar in the way that you look at your progress, your definition of success. You find yourself caring an awful lot about something, even though if you kind of step back, you might scratch your head and wonder exactly what all the fuss is about and what it all means anyway. So this is what I want to talk about. Um, so, you know, I'm just going to come out and say, I think it'd be hard to admit it, but we all want to be successful, whatever that means. It's not going to mean the same thing for all of us. Certainly, Deuteronomy talks about wealth. For me, I'm in a academic position, so it's about an academic title. I'm sure whatever scenario you're in, even if you're a parent, there is perhaps an element of success to that. My children will validate my success if my kids turn out to be good kids and get into good schools or whatever the case may be. Uh, it made me think about success and about uh, how we get so caught up in it. Maybe you are better than I am at trying not to care about it, and to compare that to really what does the Lord have to say about that, and what's the definition of success in God's eyes. Uh, I would say that maybe there's three things. If you think about what makes us feel successful in our life, uh, one I would say is a sense of progress. A sense that with each year or whatever, 4 years or whatever station time in your life, that you feel like, hey, I am on track. I ran a marathon once ever in my life, probably the only time I'll ever do it. But you get caught up being like, oh, all right, I'm at, this is my pace. I'm at the 2 mile mark, and it took me this long. I remember I hit the halfway point, and I was way ahead of my target pace, and I felt great about myself. And then I'm not going to tell you how I finished. But anyway, that's part of what makes us feel like successful, even if we're not there yet, even if we're very young. You sort of have that sense that, yeah, I'm at a good spot. Things are going well so far for me. Uh, another thing that I think makes us feel successful is a sense of validation, which is to say, are there other people who can see and acknowledge that you're successful? Would they be able to say, oh yeah, he's a star? Oh, she has this such a title. Oh, he's already making six figures, whatever it may be. That sense of external approval from other people, and then finally, may sound obvious, but also a sense of achievement, some great goal in your life. I showed you that title. You could say that the ultimate goal is for that uh, adjective associate to disappear, because that would be the next step, just to be member. A full member is what they call it. It's the equivalent of professor for assistant, associate, full professor. But in my field, there's certain things like I could think about, like, hey, if I attain that rank, I work in an academic center, so if I were to publish a scientific paper in the most prominent journal, boy, that would be a real feather in my cap. That'd be a real achievement. And I'm sure there's whatever area of life you're in, you can think of something else. Uh, so, is the sort of Christian view of success any different? When you really get down to it, for you and me, and what we hear at church and the way that we live our lives, do we have is there any real difference? I think there is a way in which our view of success can actually be basically the same, but sort of have some Christian elements to it. I think there might be a way of looking at it that says, well, yeah, I actually have, when you get down to it, the exact same goals as anybody who's not Christian. The difference is God's on my side. I'm going to pray to Him, and He's going to help me get there. You know, I think a variation on that theme is sort of to say, well, yeah, I have the same goals, but I'm going to do it in a Christian way. You know, I'm still going to get all the words and all the accolades, but the key is people are going to think I was super nice. You know, and that's going to be the difference. You know, is this really what our idea of success should be? Um, you know, the problem, uh, I would say, with these things, and I don't. I hope this doesn't come off the wrong way. There's nothing wrong with being successful or having goals. It's a wonderful testimony when God does bless you with success, and it's an especially wonderful testimony if you can achieve that, and people can see the testimony of God in your life. I'm not at all disparaging that. I would say that one of the problems is a practical one, which is what if you don't make it? You know, what if it doesn't work out for you? What if you're not making progress and you're not getting validated and you're not getting those goals? Is that it? Are you unsuccessful? Did God not come through? Were you not a good enough Christian? Seems to me that we have to completely rethink this whole idea of really what it means to be successful and what God's definition for us ought to be. You know, so the way we think about being successful should be different because honestly, whatever it is that you think of that's going to make you successful, have you ever really thought about whether that's what God is going to think is going to make you successful? You think God cares at all? I mean, do I think God cares at all? You know, whether there's assistant or associate in front of my title or what papers I've published in what journal. I mean, it's unlikely, you know, that any whatever. I don't know what you all do, but it's unlikely. I will say that God is particularly going to give you a tremendous amount of credit for that when it's all said and done. Um, but the other thing, practical thing, is that it just seems that if we have the same definitions of success as the world, no matter how much of this other Christian stuff we add to it, it's still very likely to make us miserable, right? Because falling short of success and not having other people see you successful and not being able to reach those goals makes us feel pretty terrible about ourselves, you know, and sometimes that affects our faith and our relationship to God and our self-esteem and all of these things. So I hope that as I walk you through what this wonderful psalm says, that we can think more differently about this. Um, so this is what I want to walk through with you, and I'll just read this again. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cultivate faithfulness. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. Commit your way to the Lord. Trust also in Him, and He will do it. I have to say this couplet right here: delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart. To me, that's the key to Christian success, you could say. Um, so, I'm going to walk through 4 words: dwell, uh, this word cultivate, um, this word delight, and then this way commit. To dwell in the land, to cultivate faithfulness, to delight yourself in the Lord, and then to commit your way to the Lord. I hope this will make sense by the time I'm done. So, first, let's consider this phrase, dwell in the land. Last week, when we were sharing on Deuteronomy 2, and we were talking about the 40 years that the Israelites spent in the wilderness. And I noted, or I had read, that it took 38 years. I mean, this is talking about progress. From the time that the Israelites started from Kadesh Barnea, which is right here in the wilderness of Zin, to they crossed over the brook Zered, which is this brook right here. This scale right here, I guess, is 50 miles. So I guess that's maybe 100 or so miles. So it took them 38 years to get about 100 miles. And, you know, Chet and Hannah could probably cover that in a couple days. But that's a pretty miserable rate of progress, by any measure. Uh, but what did the Lord say to them? All right, so that's uh, the Lord says He's blessed you in all that you have done. He has known your wanderings through this great wilderness. These 40 years, the Lord your God has been with you. You have not lacked a thing. So the Lord is telling the Israelites, and He's telling us this whole idea of how fast am I going? How much progress have I made in the last X amount of time? Is really the wrong question. Uh, really, the question is, has the Lord been with you? For the uh, Breaking Bread, George shared about how amazing it is that the Lord made His dwelling among the Israelites. And so uh, this word dwell, uh, it tells us that the greatest joy and the greatest contentment is to be where the Lord is, wherever that is. You know, uh, and as I mentioned last week, better uh, to have seemingly gone nowhere in the world's eyes, but to be with the Lord and have the Lord be with you, than to be a superstar, amazing overachiever in the world's eyes, and to have left the Lord behind. Um, and is this something that we can really truly take to heart and recognize what a blessing and joy and contentment it is simply to dwell in the land where the Lord has you? Uh, for so many of us, um, you know, uh, in the beginning half of our lives, um, whatever it is that brought you to New York City, very likely uh, it's a stepping stone in whatever the great race of life you've laid out before you. And uh, it is easy for us to think in those terms, to say, well, I'm just passing through. I just need to get what I'm supposed to get out of this period of time in my life, this, you know, place that I'm living right now. Make sure I get what I can get out of it, and that it doesn't take too long so I can get to the next place, and that's really what makes me feel like I'm on track. And, the Lord would have us really consider, uh, will you dwell in the land where the Lord has placed you? Is it your joy and contentment and peace to have the Lord dwelling with you? And for us to recognize that it isn't about pace and progress, about whether your 20-year life plan is on track, but that if you can say from the depths of your heart that the Lord has been faithful and He's been with me, no matter how little or how much progress I've made, with that, I will count it all joy, all happiness to have that. So, you know, um, when you look at the pattern of all of the great men and women in the Bible, you find that their lives almost never met that kind of, climbing the ladder at a high rate of speed that we all imagine we would like for our own selves. There are just vast setbacks in their lives. There are entire decades of great Christians' lives where nothing productive happened. It seemed like wasted time. And then suddenly, in almost an instant, by the sovereignty of the Lord, He brings them to a breakthrough. It's by His hand that He brings them to the place that's His will for them, that's His calling for them. And it had nothing to do with all of their striving, all of their disappointments, all of their efforts. When you love someone, I mean, we all love God. Uh, isn't it your joy just to be with that person? Who loves somebody, falls in love with somebody, and thinks of that relationship purely in those kinds of transactional terms, like, oh, you're the one for me. We're gonna just maximize each other's earnings potential. You know, I just want to be with you because you're gonna make me so much more productive. I mean, no. When you fall in love with somebody, it's your joy just to be with them, and that's sort of the point, isn't it? It's just to be in each other's presence and enjoy each other's presence, and to forget about all of these other measures of progress and success that really have nothing to do with that joy and that love. So uh, that's this matter uh, of dwelling. Uh, Now I want to consider next this phrase, which actually this is translated differently and differently, but I love this. I love the way that the New American Standard Version renders this. It says to cultivate faithfulness. Some translations are befriend faithfulness, but I'm going to use this translation. Um, I love this because, well, look, um, it's if you're in love with somebody, still you're not going to spend the rest of your lives staring into each other's eyes, right? I mean, you're still there's still there's still a matter of life. There is still something to be done with your life. And in the same way, I'm not trying to suggest that when we have God that we don't have any particular direction or labor or task or obligation whatsoever in our lives. But this word cultivate faithfulness, already I hope you'll think about this and just consider how different these two words are than whatever idea of progress and productivity and success we might have. I love this word cultivate because to cultivate something, uh, first of all, it implies a sense of staying, right? Of patience, of rest, of tending carefully, lovingly, patiently to something. And then this word faithfulness tells you it's not about producing income or accolades or honors or awards, uh, but faithfulness. So, what does that really mean? It's incredible, isn't it, that in all of the, especially for us in New York City, in whatever line of work, whatever circles you're in, we always talk about the markers of somebody who's successful are always these outward things, right? They're always about things like income and honors and awards and titles. Uh, and they're never about things that are inward. And this phrase, cultivate faithfulness, tells us what does the Lord care about? What is it that we are producing? Is it things that are outward, or is it the things that you are producing inwardly that are important? And so it's almost an old fashioned word, isn't it, to say that what matters is what is being developed in your character and not what you produce and what awards you get. That what matters are the fruits of the spirit in your life and not all of these other external things. Um, and so I think the best way to render this phrase cultivate faithfulness is to say that what we ought to be doing is becoming is to be growing in dependence on the Lord. That's really what this means. It means to cultivate faithfulness is to grow ever more dependent on our Lord. That's what it means to be faithful. And also, like I said, uh, to consider your own progress not by the world's measures, but by the measures of these things, by the fruits of the Spirit. And to be able to say, it's not about how quickly I got promoted or whether my GPA and my income is going up, but whether my life, the progress of my life, is bringing forth more fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self control. The irony of doing really well in the world's eyes, the irony of being super successful, like, man, just on the fast track, getting all the awards, getting all the promotions, everything's working out great for you. The problem there is a lot of times that actually works the opposite of this. As you grow on that track, this track withers. There's no, it shouldn't be any mystery to us that uh, things for us as Christians rarely go as smoothly and quickly and successfully as we would like. Because if that is the way that the Lord takes your life, it actually is less likely that you're going to be able to produce these fruits in your life. The more confident, the more successful. That's what that verse in Deuteronomy that I opened with is, right? You say to yourself, my hands, my efforts have made me so wealthy. that kind of attitude is less likely to cultivate faithfulness, to bring forth the fruits of the Spirit in your life. And so, I'm reminded, of course, of David, who, of course, King David was incredibly talented, obviously incredibly successful in all of his ways. But what was it that the Lord saw in him to make him king? It was not the outward appearances of things that man looks at, but it's the Lord looking at the heart. Um, and so for us, is that a way that we're going to be able to measure our own success? Are we going to acknowledge that the Lord is looking at our hearts and not at the outward positions and titles? Brings me to the third word, which is delight. Um, so, you know, uh, this basically, uh, it says, delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. If you read this in a certain way, which is to say, I think the wrong way, this might read to you like, oh, if you love God, then God will give you whatever you want. You see what I'm saying? Like you could read it that way, and I suspect that this is actually how many people think Christianity works. If I love God and I obey Him, then the desires of my heart, whatever it is, the beautiful children, the fancy car, uh, vast riches, God's going to grant those to me because I love Him. Uh, but of course, this is not what the verse says at all, right? Because what are the desires of your heart if your delight is the Lord? The desire of your heart is the Lord Himself. So really, and the reason that this verse has spoken to me all my life is because that's really the nature of God's promise to us, right? He never promises us uh, these worldly goals and successes. What He promises us is something far better, except that we're usually uh, too thick-headed to realize that it's better, which is Himself, more of Himself. If we delight ourselves in Him, then He gives us more of Himself. Um, this word delight is really interesting because I don't know if anybody knows who this person is. Anybody? What? Alex. This is Alex Honnold. Um, yes, yes. This movie won, and this won the Academy Award for Best Documentary. It's a phenomenal. For those who don't know, so Alex Honnold is a rock climber, and he uh, climbed El Capitan in Yosemite by himself without ropes in a day. The first human in history, and really basically one of the most incredible athletic achievements ever. I mean, just unbelievable. And there was a documentary that, I mean, it was literally crazy. I mean, like when I mean, this is like thousands of feet. That means that if he messed up, he would have died. I mean, literally, like it's like it's literally insane to do this, but he did it. And you should watch the movie. Obviously, it's not spoiling to say he makes it. um, but when he gets to the top, and make no mistake, he prepared and trained and practiced. He has once, one in a billion talent, but he also prepared obsessively for it, and he had a very, very special mind as well as physical gifts to be able to do this. But the point is that it's an incredible scene. When he makes it to the top, uh, they go to him and they're like, "Hey, how do you feel? What do you feel?" And I don't know if you've seen this, but he says, "How do you feel?" He's like, his word is delighted. He's actually not a particularly super articulate person, but he has this kind of goofy grin, and like this like literally like historic, incredible. He's the only human being in history who'd ever done this, and they're like, "How do you feel? You did it." And he's like delighted, and it just stuck in my mind because I was thinking about the definition of success, and I don't know what your definition of success is, but I was like, man, this guy, that was his goal, and he did it, right? I mean, he did it. And yeah, he has every right to be delighted. That was the one thing that he wanted to do with his life. Uh, and he achieved it. He has every right to be delighted. We all probably have our own equivalent. That's what's going to bring me delight. Uh, But on the other hand, if you look at it that way, it really shows you what the folly is of defining success that way. I mean, how improbable is it? I mean, this is literally a one in a billion. Like this guy's definition of delight, of success, and the fact that he accomplished it, it's like winning the Powerball lottery. That's about how unlikely it was. You know, and so my point is simple. It's really just whatever your definition of ultimate success is, uh, how likely is that actually to happen? If I were to tell you, man, I'm so passionate about NFL football, and my dream, and I'm practicing so hard is to be an NFL quarterback, or I mean, you look at me and you'd be like, that's I guess endearing, but I also, I'm kind of sad for you, because you're never obviously it's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? I mean, uh, my point is that sometimes we delude ourselves maybe a little bit. Having a goal, something so improbable, so rare, so amazing, and it's like yes, maybe there's something wonderful and passionate and pure about that. But really, when you get down to it, statistically, how likely is it that you're going to do this? This guy, you know, had again one in a billion type of talent, and then he had to do something completely insane and be lucky enough not to die, right? And so this guy's successful, but this is not a good plan, for any of us. The This is another random example, but um, uh, I'll explain the verse a little bit later. This is actually a sort of I think this was like an illicit shot of the interior of the Bloomberg building, where not my shot, but Jack and Sarah invited me a number of weeks ago. I brought the boys to that office, and it was funny because one of the things, they have unlimited snacks. This doesn't really convey the extent to which there's just unlimited snacks. And Miles, my 7-year-old son, said he literally was like, can we live here? And he was, basically for him, his version of ultimate satisfaction and success is unlimited snacks. All right. So the point here is that it would be great, wouldn't it, if that was actually what our ultimate, if that was if my if my life goal that would make me ultimately satisfied and fulfilled and successful was to have unlimited snacks, it actually would be great in a sense, because that's actually something that could be achieved. You know what I'm saying? You could actually earn enough money and make that a reality. You know what I'm saying? You could actually make it happen. Which is again more than you can say for many of the other goals in our lives, right? Wouldn't it be wonderful if that was actually all it took? Something that was actually achievable, like unlimited snacks. But of course, what we have to be reminded of is, just like we hear in the words of God in Isaiah 52, why do you spend money for what is not bread? Your wages for what does not satisfy. Listen carefully to me and eat what is good and delight yourself in abundance. I'm not going to belabor this analogy. Obviously, snacks are not good for you. That's not the point. The point, uh, the other point, the reason I bring this up is this matter of abundance. Because even if our goals and our definition of success is not quite as unlikely or death-defying or require, once a one in a billion type of talent to achieve as that one rock climber, it's very likely that your definition of success is something that is, number one, very rare, right? Only a select few people on that track attain that level of success that you're envisioning. And also that you're going to have to work your tail off and probably endure much misery, much difficulty to get there, right? So for us, these are probably almost invariably two attributes of our definition of success. It's rare, and it involves incredible toil and suffering and time to get there. And in contrast, when we talk about the Lord being our delight, we're talking about something that is not rare. You don't have to compete and step on other people's heads to get it, because the Lord offers himself abundantly. And not only does he offer it abundantly, uh, but it's that rare thing that to pursue it is every bit as joyful and pleasurable as the thing itself. You think about that. You think about whatever goal you have and how tough and miserable and difficult and unpleasant many of the sacrifices and the work that you have to make to get there. And then you think about what the Lord offers us of himself, and you realize that that is something where for me to pursue the Lord itself is a joy, is itself a pleasure. It does not require that I have to attain and look forward to some very unlikely event years in the future for it to pay off. Here and now, in my pursuit of the Lord, I already can reap that benefit. I already can have that joy and that satisfaction. I don't have to bank on something unlikely or far in the future. So that was really the question. What other goal is there that you can be certain that you're going to attain? What other goal is there where the pursuit is as pleasurable, as joyful, as satisfying, as fulfilling as the actual accomplishment? I want to just uh, think about um, some of the some of the things that I've been thinking about a lot. We had a group of people over at our place, Aaron, my place, talking about some of these articles. I think you're probably familiar with a lot of the anxieties of the modern age. A lot of these are my anxieties. you know, I feel like I am way too addicted to my smartphone and feel like it's probably not good. It's probably changing my, like literally changing my brain chemistry in a way that's not healthy, right? You probably are reading this sort of thing. Uh, this whole thing about burning out and how everybody, millennials, are burning out because they feel like the deck is stacked against them. They're working hard, but they're not, getting. I don't know. The wages are stagnant. They're super dedicated and loyal to their companies, but their companies are not at all loyal to them. Whatever it is, so much disillusionment, so much burnout. This article I came across recently. This workism. Basically, the whole point of this article. George probably has read this because this is in his favorite magazine. This is in the Atlantic. Have you? Yeah. Actually, it's really interesting. Actually, look at this. For the college-educated elite, work has morphed into a religious identity. The thesis of this article is literally that people worship work. That now that the religion has taken a back seat for sort of, American elite people, that now we worship work. And now, like, it's really like, in the same way that people probably think we're a little bit odd for spending, 2 hours here on a Sunday and on a Monday or a Thursday. Uh, this article is making the point that it's very odd that so many young Americans who are not religious are devoting themselves with a religious fervor. Like I'm working so hard at my startup or whatever, and it's just making the point that that's what's filled that vacuum of worship. And then, like I said, this is not just for the people who are on some kind of career track. We know that even for those of us who are parents, this is also a thing. This whole helicopter parents, how exhausting. It feels like we have to be always constantly on. I'm not getting into this. My whole point is that these are things that I'm anxious about, that you're likely anxious about. And it seems to me that we talk a lot about trying to achieve like work-life balance and all of these sorts of things. There's a lot of anxiety in our modern society about like, yeah, something's not right. We are too addicted to our phones. We are working too hard. We are, doting on our kids too much, and we have to move past those things. And I think that these questions are right. I think that people are right to say, hey, we probably should think twice about how much we're being affected by social media and phones and our obsession with work. But the thing that is not being answered is when you move all those things away, what then is left over? If I have successfully, I have deleted Facebook and Instagram from my phone. I don't check my work email after hours. I am able to work 40 hours a week. I spend quality time with my kids. All of these things. I've done it all. I have achieved perfect work-life balance. What's my life? What's the life that I'm balancing exactly? I mean, if you think about this, and so as I've been stressing out about my phones and my work and all those things, I sense the Lord saying, okay, so yeah, you should put those things in balance. You should spend less time on your phone. You shouldn't spend so much time at work. What then is the point of your life? What really then are you filling your life with? I don't know how you would answer that. I think that the world is not really asking that question, or to the extent that it's asking the question, it's actually posing other answers which are not good. Whether that is ego, there's sort of people who are just like, well, then it's just about me stoking my own ego and just making me feel as good about myself as I possibly can. Some people throw themselves into, I don't know, causes. I mean, I care a lot about social justice and a lot of those things. But you can also see that For some people, maybe this is their answer, is like, I'm going to throw myself into a political cause, throw myself into some kind of social justice cause. Again, I'm not trying to denigrate those things at all, but the question is this really then the answer to this question of what ought to be at the center of our lives? Even family. And again, there's no doubt that, smartphones and work sometimes come at the expense of family. But then again, and please, I'm not at all trying to denigrate any of this, but do you really think that at the end of your life, you're at the pearly gates and, you'll be able to say, well, God, you got to give me credit. I didn't spend a lot of time on my smartphone. I didn't obsess with work. I just had a ton of quality time with my kids. I'm take a bow. Is that then the purpose and meaning of our life? Is quality time with my kids? Uh, none of these things are really, I think, reaching at the heart of what the Lord is really, wanting. Um, so I want to then uh, conclude. I can't answer this question for you personally. I mean, it's a question that we all have to really seek the Lord in our own lives about what is it that fills that vacuum. Um, but I do think that this psalm offers us some way to look at it, which is this phrase: "Commit your way to the Lord." Um, it's interesting because I think that uh, this, again, if you read it hastily, it's easy to read it this way: "Commit your ways to the Lord." But would we? What does it mean to commit your ways to the Lord? To me, committing your ways to the Lord means, all right, God, I want to find a good spouse. I want to have two kids who love you and are good kids. I want, to have a respectable job, whatever it is. These are the things that I want. Lord, I commit these goals to you. Please bless them. That would be committing your ways to the Lord. But I think it's significant that the word is singular. Uh, because if you consider that the Lord is not asking us to commit our plans to Him, our ways to Him, but He's asking us to commit our way to Him, it's the difference between saying, Lord, bless my plans, protect my plans, help me succeed in my plans. And instead, it's about saying, Lord, you are my plan. You tell me what my plans are. You know, don't help me achieve what I want. Help me to want what you want. And to actually take that seriously, to really consider that's what it means to commit your way to the Lord. So, I hope this is not super abstract and vague. I hope that, perhaps if this is causing you to think, that we can have fellowship. And really, the way I think about it, our purpose, in large part, as Manhattan Gathering, is for us to help each other to really seek for ourselves what that means to say, I am committing my way to you, Lord. As I strip away all these other things that I know are not the purpose, help me to understand what really then is, my purpose. And so, put up a chart just to summarize kind of what I'm hoping to compare and contrast. The idea that we have about success in the world is, constant progress, consistent progress. I'm on the right pace. I'm where I should be for this period of my time, for the number of years I put into my school or my job. I'm where I should be. Versus God telling us, dwell in the land where He has placed you. Take heart, uh, take joy that you can be with the one you love, that the Lord can be with you wherever you are. Instead of basing our notion of success on validation and approval from others, what we should be seeking is to cultivate faithfulness, is that we can grow in faithfulness, we can grow in the knowledge and dependence on God, and that we can bear more of the fruit of the Spirit, which other people may never give you, well, will never give you an award for. Nobody will give you a promotion to associate professor of the fruits of the Spirit. Nobody. But may it be that that's what the productivity of your life is about. And instead of achieving or trying desperately to achieve very rare and very difficult goals, that we seek instead God Himself to be our goal, which is so wonderful because this is something that He abundantly grants and something that He guarantees. to those who earnestly desire in their hearts to want Him. So, I mean, just to reiterate, make God your delight, and you will be successful because He will give you the desire of your heart. Commit your way, not your ways, to the Lord. Don't ask Him to bless your goals. Let Him set your goals. Let Him shape your very desires. Uh, so uh, that's what I pray that we'll consider. Whether or not you personally are infected by the virus of success seeking. We are all in an environment where this is all around us, and so may the Lord demonstrate to us and prove to us, and really reorient our hearts to recognize, it's all been done for us, right? Jesus is the one who has obtained the success that only He, out of all, even rarer than what Alex Honnold did, right? The 1 in a billion. What Jesus did for us is one in infinity, right? He is our role model. He is our guide, and His success has become ours. That's what the gospel says. So pray that would be our prayer. I'll just leave these verses of this hymn that came to mind. Um, I think they're appropriate. It says, "My goal is God Himself, not joy nor peace, nor even blessing, but Himself, my God. 'Tis His to lead me there, not mine, but His, at any cost, dear Lord, by any road. One thing I know, I cannot say Him nay. One thing I do, I press toward my Lord. My God, my glory here, from day to day, and in the glory there, my great reward." Let's pray. Lord, I just thank You. You are uh, you are the successful one, Lord. You have given to us an incredible accomplishment and reward. It belongs to You and to You alone. But through Your great love and through Your great gospel, You have accomplished everything. There's no need for us to prove anything or to accomplish anything. Nevertheless, Lord, we know that we live in a world and we have natures inside of us that do want to make something of our lives. And Lord, those things can be wonderful. Lord, we know that You do have a purpose and a blessing for each one of us in whatever field, whatever station of life that we're in. So, Lord, we do grant that You would bless and protect each and every one of us. But through it all, Lord, pray that You would not allow us to confuse those blessings and those goals for the ultimate goal and blessing, which is You, Lord. Always allow us to encourage and keep each other accountable for You yourself to be our goal, for You yourself to be our pursuit, and for us to always take joy and delight in knowing You, depending on You more, possessing more of You, and bearing more fruit for Your sake, for Your glory. Just pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
If we have any responses we would like to share with the body, now's the time. And then chat.